I've been having a lot of fun uploading a handful of different FPS games here on the channel lately. Only 5 COD videos in the last almost 3 weeks or so, but of our discussions recently, we talked about the bummer news for Delta Force and the recent delays in the console version of the game. But it got me thinking a little bit more. This game, a game which, if I can be honest, is something that, if available for console, would be a great alternative to players in the FPS space that have been looking for something different than just COD, than just the Battlefield games currently available. Not necessarily what's still to come with 6, but anyways, an alternative to big ticket shooters, but also offering a bit of everything for everyone. Larger scale traditional combat, an extraction mode for those interested that is still to date what I think DMZ could have been, and a campaign mode that's gritty, realistic, and honestly pretty challenging. So to not have this on console is a huge missed opportunity. But the problem is, when I think about this even further, we might still be a ways off from this for a handful of reasons, which I want to discuss in this video. So drop your thoughts below, drop a like if you enjoy the video, and consider subscribing here for more FPS news, coverage, and discussions. Or I'd love to have you also check out the second channel where we're getting into the swing of uploading basically any other game that piques my interest. Most recently up, Atomfall with some early footage there and more to come. But anyways, let's get into it. So recently it was announced by the Delta Force team that the console version was planned for a release of Q1 2025, which is from right now until the next couple of days here whenever we exit Q1. They said, unfortunately, we have some bad news. The release date may need to be postponed. Now, without reading the transcript of the entire announcement of this, it's due to a few different reasons, but mainly stated input fairness, which in tactical shooters, the strength of aim assist on controller versus mouse and keys is definitely something that you should try and get right if you have the opportunity to. Obviously, we've seen in the Call of Duty space in particular in the last couple of years, the strength of aim assist being a very heavy topic of discussion. UI elements were also a mentioned piece to why this was being delayed, which surprisingly from my discussions with devs in the past, not necessarily on Delta Force, but in other games, but user interfacing is surprisingly one of the tougher things to navigate the development of. No pun really intended there, but I guess it kind of works. Getting those connections right and the ability to navigate those things with a controller versus mouse and keys where you can drag your cursor over it on PC, but has to go button to button with controller, it creates hurdles, but on a foundational level that if you get it wrong, it can have implications for the entire game. One broken piece can collapse that house of cards. So I do get it, it's not optimal, and I wish that everything was out there for everyone all at once. And hell, honestly, like looking back, if you were to take that extra development time and just release everything all at once, I think it would probably have the better reception, but I understand these concerns and what needs to be done, and so why it's necessary for them to delay the console release. Again, I don't necessarily like that it has to be that way, but it makes sense from a developmental perspective. But the update to this conversation can kind of start here, because shortly after we discussed this on the channel, the official Delta Force account on Twitter just simply posted, "Big news coming soon," which for their brand account is kind of super out of the ordinary. Usually their posts contain graphics, detailed checklists of things to come with like patches or updates, attached videos, promotions, more flashy things that get you to try and not scroll away as quickly. If you just see something in text format on a tweet, you might just scroll past it, not thinking much of it. Not even like an emoji or something of an alarm or something that indicates, hey, big news is coming soon, that's again used to be eye-catchy. But big news coming soon really sent the alert bells into high alert for people whenever they saw this, because all of the comments were basically like, yo, when's the console details coming? And honestly, it was a justifiable guess. Except that's not what happened at all. Later that same day, it was announced the global launch for mobile on April 21st of this year. So for a brand, I get it, that is actually a big announcement here, and mobile audiences in Asia are massive. So for them, it is a big deal. But for the audience that their Twitter has garnered, well, it seems like it's the biggest bait and switch and something that for you or I, we probably couldn't care less about. And when every single social post is flooded with replies asking, when's console coming, or any sort of details on that, to announce big news is a bold way to completely ignore those questions even further. But now this is where my skepticism kind of comes into play. Obviously, I want this to come as soon as possible for players to be able to have their hands-on experience, for the game to be something that people can enjoy. But my copium and hopium levels, at the earliest estimations in our last video, discussed the game going, well, there's this big sort of gap in Season 3, the next season upcoming, that they don't have a whole ton in terms of content. And maybe that's something that, being a light content focused season, maybe there's something else being announced with that. And in a 3-month span where the season for content has already been criticized as being too little and being too slow on the responses for current offerings for issues at hand, having even less content for the upcoming season seems like a PR nightmare had there not been something planned to fill that space otherwise. And maybe a new influx of players experiencing that game could fill that gap, right? But now I'm not too sure on that anymore, because the thing that they closed their announcement of the console delay with was to help everyone understand the latest developments on the console version. We will soon release a detailed roadmap of our plans. This will include the progress and tasks we complete periodically. We'll be as open and transparent as possible with everyone. So the next thing we see about the announcement for console releases isn't going to be likely the date at which it's going to be released, but rather the roadmap of the plans, thus suggesting that it's not going to be a one and done, hey, here's when you can play on console, but instead it's going to be a multi-step process that will likely require multiple phases of testing before being implemented. And if that's the case, with the speed at which things are being handled in Delta Force currently, that would infer we're not going to see this in the next quarter here, but instead could be something pushed back into quarter 3, quarter 4 perhaps, which is a dangerously long delay. And I say dangerous in the sense of consumers losing interest. And I'm sure that there's already going to be comments on this video before anybody gets to this portion of the video where they're like, well, they lost me, I don't care. Doesn't matter what this discussion has to say about consoles, I don't care anymore. And that's kind of just proving the point. The longer you wait, the longer people can't play your game. That anticipation of playing then turns into restlessness, and then eventually a lack of care or interest in any capacity. Not to mention, when you get further and further into this year, additional games of anticipation get closer and closer to their releases. GTA 6 most notably being that one that, if it does happen in 2025, is going to take over the entire internet. Battlefield 6, again, if it meets its 2025 launch or goes into the spring of 2026, doesn't matter, you're still getting closer to that. Black Ops 7 is, as with death and taxes, a sure thing with 2025 that even if you don't care about the prospect of COD lately, it's gonna happen. It's gonna pull players as it has the last 20 years. It's just objective fact. So I can't help but think this is another situation like XDefiant, having all the cards to be successful as a competitor, but a missed opportunity to drop it when you're in the air quote off season, when people are looking for something new to play to tide them over for their next big blockbuster release or whatever they're looking forward to on an annual basis. And here's the thing, same with XDefiant, being free to play will absolutely help no matter what. Like, there's going to be players whenever console launches, but whether tomorrow or a year from now, we don't know. Seizing the opportunity in this offseason for FPS games, though, is something that seems to be a layup if you were to do it for another hotly anticipated game. But with it not happening, well, if I had a nickel for every time that didn't happen in recent years, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but is weird that it happened twice. But ultimately, I just think it's kind of a bummer given the nature of the game. Like I said, there's a bit of everything for everyone. Whether you're a large combat fan, extraction fan, or campaign fan, there's something there for everyone. And one thing that I definitely give Delta Force credit for is that it's hard to come by a game that feels fluid in its elements here and how it performs, but I feel like that's actually one of those games that does. From movement to weapon animations to gunplay, it feels pretty clean and polished. So it's a shame that more and more people can't experience this yet and may not be able to for quite some time still. Now, of course, this is all without knowing what the future holds. Ultimately, this could just be me doom scrolling in a sense, thinking more into the bad than actually what ends up happening. The new Delta Force season will kick off late next month into early May, so we should start to see marketing and announcements for that in the coming weeks. It's still a little too early to tell when exactly their marketing will kick off. Like, they're not as predictable as COD has been in the basic marketing outline that for the last 10 to 15 years, I could basically pinpoint the exact day on when you'll see things start to happen. But as we get closer, obviously a new season is going to start getting revealed. So who knows? Maybe this could be a matter of being entirely wrong and they're just like, season 3 is now coming to consoles, but we'll see. Not getting my hopes up, but I sure wouldn't be mad if that's the case. But anyways, would love to know your thoughts down below. What do you think? Do you think we're still a ways off from the Delta Force console release? Do you think it's going to be coming next season? Whatever, let me know. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Delta Force and other FPS coverage here. Black Ops 6 Season 3 upcoming, but also more stuff with like Battlefield and a ton of other games I'd love to have in the community. For now, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.